Wander Wealthy Podcast, episode 188. Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Wander Wealthy Podcast. I am so excited that you are joining me for this week's episode. If you are brand new here, my name is Tess. I am the founder of Wander Wealthy, the Wealthy Coach Blueprint, my 12-week coaching program for aspiring and new money coaches. More on that in a bit. And the host of this show. Did I already say that? Probably. But if you are new, if you happen to have stumbled upon this show and you are also a new aspiring or current, but just a little bit frustrated with your progress money coach out there in the world, then you have stumbled into the right place. Today, we're going to be talking about the 5 surprising ingredients that you need in order to be the best financial coach. And I think these are really going to actually surprise you, because what a lot of people think they need to be a coach is so often the exact opposite. Not necessarily the exact opposite, but just not entirely necessary. And so I'm going to break that down for you and share with you what those ingredients are and why I truly believe that those are the only things you need to really be an amazing financial coach, to get started right here, right now, and do the dang thing. So before we dive in, however, I want to introduce you to this week's sponsor of the show. It is the Wealthy Coach Blueprint. That is my 12-week business coaching program for money coaches, wealth coaches, financial coaches, whatever you like to identify as. And it is perfect for those who are either brand new and have just been thinking about maybe doing this as a career, or who have already just started, but you're really not sure kind of what sort of steps you should be taking, what the best steps are to be taking, and maybe you're not seeing the results that you really thought you would when you just finally launched your money coaching business. Or perhaps you have been in the business of money coaching for quite some time and you're not seeing the scalability of what you have to offer. You're not really sure, what a really good, scalable, sustainable financial coaching model can look like. And you're really looking for some mentorship and support to kind of reconstruct what you have already built. So if you fall into any of those categories, the Wealthy Coach Blueprint is the perfect solution. And it just so happens that enrollment is going to be opening a little bit sooner than I thought it might. Given what's going on in the world, we are still living in the time of COVID. If you are listening to this and it is no longer COVID times, we are jealous of you. We want to be there. But because we are still in the times of COVID, which has been actually surprisingly wonderful in the money coaching realm, but it's also reaped some other misfortunes, like me not being able to go to my coaching training that I was really excited to go to this January, or this coming January and February. So because things have moved for me with some physical limitations of not being able to offer the Wealthy Coach Blueprint during that time, now I can. That's the good news. So we're going to be opening up enrollment sometime in November, and it's a little bit sooner than I thought, but I am super excited because for those of you who have been wanting to sign up, have been wanting to kickstart your money coaching business in a really, really strong, solid foundation, then this is your chance. So enrollment is not open yet if you are listening to this when the episode goes live, but you can head to wanderwealthy.com/apply to sign up for the waitlist. And if you happen to be listening to this while enrollment is open, then when you head to that link, wanderwealthy.com/apply, you might just have the opportunity to book your own strategy session. So head there, check out all the additional details of what you can expect from the program. And we're going to be talking about it in the next couple of weeks because we are going to be opening enrollment soon. So I cannot wait to see how many more amazing money coaches we're going to bring to the world and create your life-changing program, find your ideal clients, and who knows, maybe become a full-time money coach or scale your full-time money coaching business. So wanderwealthy.com/apply. All right. For this week's episode, we are talking all about the 5 surprising ingredients to be the best financial coach. And we're really just going to dive on in. You ready? All right. Ingredient number 1 is the psychological mental strength to keep your mouth shut. I know that's weird, because I have a blabbermouth as well. But coaching is so much about listening and behavioral monitoring. And a huge problem that I see in the coaching industry, it's not necessarily a problem I see people mistakes people are making, but it's a mindset problem that keeps a lot of people stuck or keeps them from moving forward. Is there's so many coaches that have this idea in their head that they have to fill up the space with their words, or fill up the space with content, or fill up the space with the right answers. Like they have to be the expert. But I need you to understand that when you are working with a client, you actually should be listening and letting them talk way more than you. And that means that you don't have to have all the right answers right then and there. You don't have to be an expert. You don't need to give an hour-long lecture. If the coaching call doesn't even go, an hour, let's say, maybe you don't even do the hour-long coaching calls, and that's fine too. But let's say you have hour-long coaching calls, but the coaching call ends up kind of wrapping up at 40 minutes. That's okay, right? The important thing, and the way that you can be the best financial coach, is to listen and to monitor the behavior. So that's the other thing is money coaching. I mean, coaching in general, but money coaching, financial coaching, the way that you're going to help your clients see real results is by helping them understand that their behavior, their actions are what's going to get them the results. And if they don't and are unwilling to change their behavior, then we're not going to see anything new. We're not going to see any changes. We're not going to get the results that they wanted to when they initially signed up to work with you. And so as a coach, you have to become an expert at monitoring and recognizing behavior stagnation or behavior change. And you can do that through listening and monitoring progress, of course, in the various ways you might do that, but listening in your coaching call and asking questions and just opening it up for the client to speak to, right? You do not need to move all of the pieces for your client. You need to understand where they're at and help them come to their own conclusion of how they're going to get to where they want to go and how they're going to become intrinsically motivated to change certain aspects of their behavior. So we always say you need to understand that coaching is a behavioral focused career, not a subject matter expert focused career. You always want to calibrate on behavior and make all of your decisions from there. And I think that can often come as quite a woosah, is that the term? Quite a relief for a lot of coaches, especially when we get to work together and we're starting to build and construct their program, is sometimes those thought gremlins, that imposter syndrome comes in and says, who are you to be coaching on this topic, right? You're not an expert in this topic, but the best coach isn't the one that knows all of the answers to every single question that could ever possibly be asked. The best coach is the one that can help their client understand what they're doing, how what they're doing is not serving them, maybe help them calibrate their behavior on their personal values and priorities, and then start implementing behavioral change. So listening and behavioral monitoring is the very first thing. I know that's technically 2 things, but they're kind of one and the same when you're in a coaching call, is really just focusing on what the client is saying and how that's a reflection of how they're acting. The second thing that you need is empathy and understanding. And this is probably the reason you got into coaching in the first place, or one of them, because you are a truly empathetic person and you want to come and help people, right? But sometimes there can become a point where you know you have the solution and you're trying to deliver to the client and it's just not sticking, and you get frustrated, and we kind of forget about the empathy and the understanding piece. So the way that we put this into action when it comes to coaching is you always want to respect your client's model of the world, right? We all have this perspective of the world. We're all living in our own model of what reality is. And for people who come from different backgrounds, it couldn't look very different. Like, it actually is a very different model to maybe even yours as the coach. And so you always want to respect where they are coming from and understand the circumstances that they are living within before prescribing a solution, right? Especially when it comes to, some sensitive topics, like maybe they have some trauma around money. Maybe growing up, money was a cause for fights, and, whether those were verbal or potentially even physical. And so you want to be really cautious about those sensitive issues. You can also understand this in terms of systemic inequalities and inequities, and understanding how those may play a role, maybe not for them specifically, but potentially it could be a generational thing that gets passed down. So really trying to dispel, your really potentially you're like me and you're like, I have a tight grip on reality and this is right and this is wrong, right? And I can admit I've come from that place in many ways, and I've had to learn that that's not always the picture or the model that your client is living in. So if you can kind of pull yourself up in a way and understand their model of the world, respect that, and then work within that, or work to get them out or to expand their model, that's going to be the best way for you to coach. And so one way that you can understand this is, remember, going back to calibrating on behavior, right? We focus on the behavior. What are they doing or not doing that is getting them the results that they currently have, that are most likely the results that they don't want, right? And how can we change that behavior to get the results that they want? But when you can back out of that, and backing out of that by going, okay, this is what they're doing. What's the reason behind why they're doing this? And oftentimes the reason, right, if we think about the cognitive model of psychology, our actions come from our states of being or our emotions, how we are feeling, right? We choose to act based off of feeling. So if you can identify, okay, what are the feelings that are leading you to behave or maybe not behave? Maybe they're inaction, they're feeling stagnant, or they're feeling overwhelmed, and that leads to them just not doing anything. If you can help understand where that's coming from, what state or emotional state that they're in that is creating that behavior or non-behavior, then you can even back into the thoughts. And from the thought perspective, you can get into understanding, is this something from, that's been passed down generation over generation? Is this something that is coming up for you because it's an experience that you had earlier in life? And really understanding, especially when the reality that your client is living in, you can see it, and you can see, if we just make these couple changes, it'll be really easy. But then you get on the call maybe a month later and they haven't done anything, or they've actually made changes in the opposite direction. That's when we know, okay, we got to calibrate on behavior, and now we got to back out and go into empathy and understanding of what's happening in their model of the world. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. This is a little bit neuro-linguistic programming-y, if you will, but really understanding that coaching is so much more than just having the best budget and having the best right answers for your client, but also knowing that it's a lot of times very much being willing and able to listen, to calibrate on behavior, and to understand and respect your client's model of the world with empathy. Okay? The other thing that I just wanted to mention here is, obviously, empathy and understanding is super important, right? Creating a non-judgmental, safe space for your client to feel safe to talk about money and what maybe the deeper issues are that lead to these money problems. And for you as the coach, one thing that's really important to remember is that people are not their behaviors. They're just people, right? But they are behaving in a certain way that's leading to the results they don't want. So people are not their behaviors. So accept the person, change the behavior. Okay? The third surprising ingredient to being the best financial coach is having your signature framework, a process, okay? This is so important for so many reasons, and it wasn't until I implemented my process and signature framework and I was able to articulate that in discovery calls with potential clients was when I actually started seeing clients being like, that makes total sense. Sign me up. Let's do it. And so let's break that down. When you can articulate your process in a sales call or even in your marketing, maybe you're just writing content, talking about it on a blog or a podcast, that makes it so much easier for your ideal clients to actually go, oh, I can see how this fits into my life, how I'm going to be able to inject myself into this process. My coach is going to take me through it and I'm going to see my results. So from a marketing perspective, having a process can be really powerful. But from a coaching perspective, when you're actually in the process now, you're working with the client, it's also super helpful for your client to gauge where they're at in this process of working with you. And so when we create a process, when we create a framework, this is ideally one that you have personally maybe even gone through yourself. And when inside of the Wealthy Coach Blueprint, we create our program and our processes based off of a co-creation perspective. And so it's a mixture of what you've personally implemented into your own life or what you've found to be really helpful for maybe some clients you've worked with in the past. So it's taking from your own expertise, but it's also co-creating with your ideal client. So you make sure it's perfectly suited for them. They're willing to pay for it. It's exactly what they want. So that's a really important piece. But if we're just focusing on the process, and if you just want like a quick takeaway today from this episode, take what you've already been taking your clients through that you've seen actually works and gets them results, or take what you personally have taken yourself through, especially if you haven't worked with clients and you've seen that work for yourself and it's gotten you results. Take that and distill it down into a 3 to 5 step process or framework. If you can say, okay, step 1 is I have to get real with my situation. I got to get all my finances out on the table and look at what we're dealing with. And then step 2 is I have to set a budget for myself and see where my income is coming in and how it's getting spent and just see where I stand today. And then step 3 is I got to start negotiating either bills in my budget or maybe negotiating my salary. Like I got to create wiggle room, create breathing room so that I can actually make progress towards my debt or towards my savings goal. Let's say this is a process specifically for helping you save in your emergency fund, like save an awesome, huge cushion for yourself to feel safe and secure. Okay. Let's say that's what your clients want too. Now you're going to take this and you're going to sell it to your clients and you're going to help them feel safe and secure. So step 3 was finding that wiggle room. Step 4 is implementing an automatic transfer process and then checking in on it. And step 5 is just to review, to be able to learn how to track, how to project forward. Let's say that's your process, okay? And so you would take that now, and if that's the exact process that you went through, maybe tweaked a little to make it something that you can take and replicate for your clients, then you can take that and you can package it up and you can name it my 5-step safety net framework, right? And the tagline is, so you never have to worry about an emergency cost again, or you never have to worry about your tire blowing out again. I don't know. But you take that. It's a 5-step safety net framework. And then you take that and you can speak to that in every aspect of your coaching, but especially in your coaching calls. When you're working with your client, you can help them see where they're at in the process of going from where they're at right now, which is feeling really insecure with their finances, really not knowing how they're going to make, maybe they're living paycheck to paycheck. And then their biggest frustration is that they keep getting random, surprise, unpredictable expenses that they have to pay that then just keep them backsliding or spending all of their savings. So then they really just feel stuck. And they're frustrated. And the end goal is obviously to have this awesome high value safety net, whatever that high value means for them. And if you can help them see where they're at while they're going through the process, it just brings peace of mind, but it also continues to sell them into the program that they've already bought themselves into. And that's an interesting, unique little side note about coaching is you're not done selling to your clients when they've purchased your program, right? You have to keep them bought in to believing in the process, to going through the effort. Like they're still the ones that have to do the thing at the end of the day. So you have to keep them motivated and on board and seeing that this works. And, here's where we're at in the process. Here's where we're going next. Just wait until you get to the next step because it's going to feel so good, right? So have that process and identify what is yours and start working that into your marketing, into your sales calls, as well as into your actual coaching so your client can feel really supported and understand where they stand when it comes to the process and what they can expect next. The fourth surprising ingredients that you need in order to be the best financial coach is resourcefulness. So this goes back all the way to the top when we were talking about coaching being a behavioral focused career, not a subject matter expert career, right? You don't have to have all the answers. You only have to be willing and resourceful enough to go find the answers if it falls within the scope of what your client is paying you to do. And that's why it's also really important to have a scope, to have a process, to tell your client what they can expect and what they should not be expecting from you. But if you are working with a client on student loans, and that's your big thing, is that you help your clients with student loans and you're working with them on something, but there's a small little thing that happens to be slightly unique. You've never seen it before with your clients in the past or with yourself and your own experience with student loans, but this client happens to have it. You're not expected to have the answer in that moment for that client with this unique aspect of their student loan, or maybe a unique question that they have that impacts their student loan. But what you can do is say, hey, this is great. Let me go do some research on this so I can give you the best answer of how we can manage this unique aspect of your student loan here, right? You just have to be willing to be resourceful. And you, as someone who has more experience working with clients, working with yourself, achieving the goals that you've achieved, you are way more likely to be able to go find the answer and really know how to apply it to your client than just letting your client, deal with it themselves. So I'd much rather have you help them and just say, hey, I don't know the answer, but I'm going to go find the answer for you because this has never come up for me or my clients before, but that's unique and I want to know how to manage this in the future and I want to be able to provide you with the answer as well. You can definitely do that. However, you don't have to take on everything, right? If it's outside of your scope, if it's an investing question that has nothing to do with the impact of their student loans, then, you can just say, hey, that falls out of the scope of my work. That's not something that I teach or I am even able to advise on. I would definitely recommend seeking out, XYZ person. And that's where you can also just be resourceful and creating strategic partnerships with people who you can refer your client to when they're ready for that next step or when it is appropriate or when they have a specific question that you don't probably even frankly feel comfortable addressing. Okay. So you don't need to be an expert. You just need to be resourceful. If you wait until you're an expert, you'll probably never become a coach because we always have so much more that we could learn. The fifth and final thing that it takes to become the best financial coach is permission. Now, bear with me here. Permission is such an important piece of the entire business process, all the way from having conversations with potential clients to having and conducting a sales call and getting permission all throughout that sales call to be talking about your product, to potentially put on your coaching hat. There's lots of different things that you can do and should do when it comes to permission in that regard. But there's also permission that comes up when it comes to actually conducting your coaching. And this permission specifically is getting permission from your client to, be able to call them out and hold them accountable on what they want to achieve and where they want to go and what actions they are taking and have not been taking. And this is really important. And I think the best time you can and should do this is at the beginning of your coaching agreement. You can make that part of the onboarding process, letting them know like, hey, these are my expectations. This is what we're going to do. I just want to get your permission to be able to, help you check yourself and to check you when it is appropriate and to make sure that we're staying on track and we're not getting distracted and we're working towards the goal, because that's how we're going to best be able to work together to get you the results that you want, right? But there's also going to become times where you are going to have to ask your client, are we still committed to this goal? Have we gotten distracted? Can I hold you accountable to fulfill this? Especially if you're noticing that the client might be getting distracted or they might be getting off track or they might be letting something get in the way. And all of these 5 things that I'm talking about play together. And so, yes, get permission to hold your client accountable while also being able and willing to hold the space open and have empathy and understanding and monitor their behavior and all of that, right? Help them see where they're at in the process. Get resourceful to help them with any hurdles that they're facing. But the permission piece is super key, because sometimes that's when a client agreement can go awry, is when you don't feel confident for yourself to call out your client and hold them accountable to what they said they wanted to do and were going to do. And then your client can also feel like, I'm not getting the results. Why not? And oftentimes it comes down to you feeling comfortable and confident to hold them accountable and for them to know and expect and be ready for you to call them out, right? Sometimes we need that nudge as people in general. So when it comes to this, my favorite saying, especially when you notice maybe a client isn't taking what you had agreed to do maybe last week or last month, and they haven't been doing the behavior, they haven't been taking the action they said they were going to take, and you're trying to understand, is first of all, get permission to really dive into that topic. And then always remind yourself and potentially remind your client, it's not your fault. Whatever happened here, whatever came up, whatever circumstance you find yourself in now, it's not your fault, but it is your responsibility to pull yourself out and move on to the next step and get the result that you want. Okay. So those are the 5 things that it takes to be the best financial coach. And you'll notice that none of them, aside from maybe the process, have really tangible, I went to school for this expectations or requirements, right? The process also, it's just something that you have either personally experienced. Well, you probably have personally experienced it. You've either done it yourself or you've implemented it with other practice coaching clients, and now you're ready to package it up and make it official that you have a process. But everything else is very much like EQ style stuff. The willingness and ability to listen and monitor behavior, having empathy and understanding, willing to be resourceful, and getting permission to call out your client and hold them accountable. And that's permission so that you know you can do that, and so that your clients aren't shocked or surprised or feel any sense of disappointment when you do that. So note that none of this says you have to have a certification, you have to have achieved some sort of result yourself. You have to have so many years of experience. You have to know every single answer to every single possible question that could ever possibly come up. It also doesn't have anything about having a fully built out program with professionally filmed videos, a perfectly designed worksheets, or an app or a website, right? Coaching is so much more about the person-to-person understanding, behavior, calibration, and helping them get resourceful themselves, you being resourceful to get them the answers they need, to guide them along the way, and to call them out when they need to be called out, or to keep them on track and keep them on track on that process that you created. So that's it. And I hope that this was as surprising as I promised it was going to be. And if you have questions about this or you want to keep the discussion going, please reach out to me on Instagram. I am at Tess_Wicks. Send me a DM. I love chatting with you. And if you are ready to step up as a coach, if you're ready to see what it really takes to build your coaching business, to deliver a life-changing coaching program, then I implore you to sign up for the Wealthy Coach Blueprint waitlist by going to wanderwealthy.com/apply. If you want to get access to this week's show notes, you can head to wanderwealthypodcast.com/podcast/episode 188. And that's it. So until next week, I hope you wander wealthy.